Operation Buckwheat. Oh wait, introduce yourself first.
Hello.
What happened over there?
Hey, I'm David. I'm from China, and I'm taking high school in Florida.
I'm Cassie. I'm from New Jersey, and I'm going to be a rising senior. I'm Anna, and I'm from Germany, and I'll also be a rising senior.
Okay, I'm Liu from Suzhou, China. It's the first time in America.
Cool. Okay. Whoa, making a mess. I like that these are taped to be a little sturdy. This is true of the other cards as well. The one thing to watch out for is that then they stick together. Okay, Operation Buckwheat. Wow, this is a lot of premise. Once upon a time, after a very violent thunderstorm, a field of buckwheat was struck by lightning and was left blackened and singed. A willow tree nearby saw it happen with his very own branches and immediately wanted to help. The willow tree told a flying sparrow above to warn the neighboring cornfields, the country people, and the flowers about the dangerous situation. The country people were devastated by the news and begged the sparrow for help. Once the cornfields found out, they tried their best to warn the buckwheat about how dangerous the lightning can be. Both the cornfield and the willow tree tried to explain to the buckwheat how they should bend their heads over and let the storm pass so that the buckwheat would not get struck by lightning again. The buckwheat looked up at the sky to take a peep into heaven with pride and ignored what the others said. The buckwheat knew a little bit of lightning would not hurt it, but everyone is still worried for his safety. Another thunderstorm is about to approach the field of plants. The flowers, corn, and willow tree all want to help save the buckwheat before it's too late. Whoever gets the buckwheat into a safe zone first before the lightning strikes will be the field's hero. Okay, so we're trying to save a prideful buckwheat. Let's skip the materials description. The board is laid on a table. It looks like the willow trees, corn, and flowers are separated and accessible. Each player receives a player pin. I'll be this frog. I mean, it's deserved. Oh wait, do we have? Does it matter? I'm going to just start. I was going to take those my second choice.
Not there. Right.
Place the pin on the edge of the board, each 3 spaces away from the corner on the place mark start. Align with the opponent. Place the lightning clock beside the board.
Lightning clock.
Which is here. Beside the board, and put the lightning fuse clock on the circle marked with 1. Sit diagonally from your teammate. Who's my teammate? Whoever ate bread last goes first. Who most recently ate bread?
I'm confused.
Your teammates.
I think we're teammates.
But I'm sorry, I ate bread last night.
I ate bread this morning. I had a bagel. All right. I assume a bagel counts. Okay. These are tense. The objective of the game is to save the buckwheat from open space and bring it to one of the safe zones, which I assume is marked with a smiley face. To win the game, a player must bring the buckwheat into one of the 2 safety zones. Oh, I think having objective and how to win separated feels redundant, right? They're kind of saying the same thing. Steps of the game. So we can plant a garden and or move 1 or 2 spaces, and then we can remove any destroyed plants or defensive attacks. So it sounds like it's played in phases. Player 1, player 1 places a lightning cube. I guess that's me. Lightning strikes. Player 1 takes action, player 2 takes action, player 3 takes action, and player 4 takes action. It's not totally clear what those numbers mean.
Yeah, first player token.
But I guess it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that correct?
Which number?
Well, it says player 1 takes their actions, then player 2 takes their actions, then player 3 takes
It's
their actions.
whatever order that you're going.
Okay. So I'll be player 1, 2, 3, 4.
So
It's
it's
just saying.
cooperative then? We're trying to get into either of our places?
Yeah, you and I are teammates, and we're trying to get it into either of these smiley zones, I think.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused.
This is the buckwheat.
Okay. And then does it matter which of the 2 get it into? Just as long as we're the ones that do it?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But let's keep reading. Okay, on a player's turn, a player has 2 possible actions to take during his or her turn. To move and to plant a garden. One of these 2 actions must be taken each turn. A player can also choose to take both. To move, a player moves his or her pin to an adjacent space, and he or she can choose to move either 1 or 2 spaces. A player can only move forward, backward, left, or right, not diagonally. As listed on page 5, a player can plant one of the gardens during his or her turn. So 5 is going to show us the diagrams. If a player planted a temporary garden in the last round, he or she has to remove it before taking any other action. So temporaries would last till your next turn. If a garden was planted in a lightning zone, refer to the next page. The lightning zone. The field is experiencing a thunderstorm. Because of this, there are some areas that are occasionally struck by lightning. These zones are marked on the board with lightning bolts. At the beginning of the game, the lightning cube needs to be put on the eye placement of the lightning clock. Starting from the second round, the first player of the game moves it to the 2 placement and the lightning cube moves 1 placement, following the arrow every round. Okay, so we have to, whoa. Okay, each round, lightning strikes the zones that have the number corresponding to the lightning. Okay, so every round it's going to circle the board, or hop around the board. A garden with any part in the struck lightning zone is immediately and forever destroyed. The player that is in the struck lightning zone determined at the beginning of the round will immediately be paralyzed and skip their turn that round. If a player has the buckwheat while struck in a lightning zone, the buckwheat will die and the player's team loses. This situation would end the game. Gameplay. Different types of plants can be used to move toward the buckwheat. Destroy plant paths and create barriers. Plants can be used together for power combinations. Every garden planted is public, so all players can use garden construction to move. A player should place a proper garden onto the board wherever he or she decides to plant a garden. A paper garden onto the board. After, the player should place corresponding plant cubes on top of the paper garden. A player can plant a garden to move on and use its ability to move. This counts as 1 full turn moving, and planting a garden counts as 1 full turn because the player is planting a garden and moving on to the garden. Okay. If the player plants a garden and wants to move on an already planted garden, which is public, then he or she can move on the garden with its full ability. Example, a corn row transports the player to the end of the row. Okay, so let me just make sure I understand this correctly. If I could do this and move here. Is that correct? But I could also do this and be teleported here. But if this is here, could I do this and then go? No. Okay. So it just would move me here. And then my next turn I could go like that.
If lightning strikes, it cannot, but if not,
It's not for baby.
Yeah. Okay. When a garden is destroyed, both the paper garden and cube should be removed from the board. When transporting, a player moves on top of the plant. If the player plants corn, the player should move on top of its 5th corn stalk. Here are the plant abilities and available moves. Okay. So first we could place 5 willow trees diagonally in a line, and a second willow tree diagonally connecting the tree to make a branch, like that shape, which is pre-made for us? No. Oh, okay.
Oh.
This is a willow. We could play a willow, which would play like this.
Diagonally.
Oh, like this?
Huh,
Oh, okay. I see. It lines up.
yeah.
The corners line up. The player can only move to the intersection between the tree and its branch for the first move. Okay, so it'd be nice if that were communicated here, but this is like a stop point. Place 1 willow tree diagonally in the square adjacent to the player, and place another willow tree 2 spaces down. Can use to skip plants in the middle space. So this lets us like hop over stuff. But does this get struck by lightning?
If one of the specific
Trees
groups,
does.
yeah.
Okay. So only for tree does. A blossom flowers in a V shape around an open path blocking the player. It can only be destroyed with popcorn, in which the flower and the popcorn are both removed from the board. Flowers in an L shape in front of the player forward path. Okay, you can plant 5 flowers in an L shape to redirect. You can do a 4 corn row. Are these 4 lines? These are 5 lines.
Sorry about that.
Oh, it's just a typo. Okay. So we can do a corn.
For path. For a flower path. I'm not sure what it's meant by redirect. Someone.
shape?
So like,
Yeah.
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 So if a player was, if your opponent was here, you could place them here, and they would have to follow that path. Like other stuff.
Oh, like flowers just block other plants,
Yeah.
and you can't walk on top of them.
Yeah. This would you have to follow outside of
So
it.
it would force them to walk along this?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like the player would have to be here, and then you place that on the outside.
So it's like a direct attack against someone that is there, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was flower path, and there's no way to remove that. Popcorn breaks a blossom with 2 corns. The popcorn must be removed as well as the destroyed flower blossom by the player who planted it. And that is just by playing 2 individual corns. Okay. Sakura consists of 4 flowers on 1 willow tree. Here. Transportation from the current spot on the board to any of the corners of the board takes 2 full turns. The player can only plant the sakura on his or her own turn. He must wait until the next turn to move on to the sakura. Once the player moves into the sakura, the willow tree space, he or she must remove the sakura and is not allowed to move or plant further on that turn. Sakura cannot be destroyed. The first turn of his build. Okay. And then there's cornflower gunpowder, which is 2 flowers and 2 corn. Shoots directly in front of the gun. Okay, so that's a gun. The hit player must move to the closest free space in the direction the gun is pointing to, so it pushes the player 1. And then there's a lightning conductor, which is 3 willow trees and 1 corn. Looks like this. It points to a plant and conducts lightning to that plant, and it removes the plant, so it's another sort of gun-like thing. But it looks like it has to be right next to it. And you remove it the turn after you play it, so it's a temporary. Okay. Those are the patterns. There's still more. Collecting the buckwheat. To collect the buckwheat, a player must be in exactly one of the 8 squares surrounding the buckwheat, so one of these arrow squares. The player can then swap his or her player pin for the buckwheat pin and continue toward the safety zones. Players should keep their player pins in case possession of the buckwheat changes.
So these ones are actually missing a piece.
Oh, these ones have 2.
Oh, there you go.
So, let's do that first.
Oh, but sorry.
Players should keep the pin, so you basically go like this. Well, you go like this, and then you're playing as the buckwheat if you pick it up. To steal the buckwheat from another player, a player must be standing at most 2 squares away from the player holding the buckwheat in any direction. The safety zones are marked by smiley faces on the sides of the board. In order to win the game, a team or 2 players must work together to bring the buckwheat into either of the safety zones. The buckwheat cannot be hurt by lightning when in the safety zone, and therefore is safe. There are gardening-free zones around the safety zones. Players cannot plant anything in those areas. To reach safety zones, players must move 1 to 2 free spaces rather than planting a path. Okay, so you can't grow into the safety zones.
Actually, is it that we move the buckwheat, or we take the buckwheat and when we pick it up?
When you reach the buckwheat, you play as the buckwheat.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that too, but then on the next line it says you keep your piece
Oh,
in case somebody steals it. Because then if it gets taken, you go there. And they take it.
Alright.
Okay.
Quick question, so for the lightning strike, it's like just these 3 squares or anything that's connected to it? So it's,
Right.
okay, I just want to make sure.
So like if this was like here, if lightning strikes, then
Yeah.
this will.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's get started. I'm going first because I ate a bagel. So to remember the turn order, I plant and or move, and then remove any destroyed things. And lightning. When does lightning strike? At the beginning?
At the beginning of your round? At the beginning
Oh,
of
okay. It just struck here.
and here.
Oh, and there. Okay, there's 2.
And, yeah.
There were at least 2 areas.
Okay, well I'm just gonna I put cubes on it.
What do the cubes do?
I think there's just additional field growth.
I see. Well, I'm going to do the, so lightning now strikes 2 spots, that strikes,
Well, I don't think
No,
it's,
no.
no, I don't think it strikes again until my turn.
okay. So I'm gonna be completely original.
So, wait. You're on my team, right?
Yeah,
Before you do that, right? We're like team members.
yeah,
I played this game before.
Okay.
Take that into consideration.
alright, what do you
Why
recommend?
team members? Well, if we're team members, it doesn't.
Yeah, what does it mean that we're team members? I'm a little
I
unclear
mean,
on
like,
that.
how does communication, is it open
It's open.
communication? So we all hear each other.
Are there certain things that I can do that you can't do?
I think that we can plant, knowing that, like, you can plant knowing that her turn is coming up, so you can plant things out.
Right.
So knowing
Okay.
your turn is coming up, I am going to plant this here, which is pointing in your direction.
Yeah, but you could also plant like over here. I think that's the idea.
We could.
Plant in front of my teammate.
Also, you would want to do it from the other
Oh,
way.
right, yeah.
And then
Do I want to go into the lightning zone now?
Oh, then I think you shouldn't do that.
it's in lightning zone 4 though.
Yeah. 4 is pretty far from now.
It's in the lightning zone.
Well, actually, lightning zone 1 is better because that's
Even further.
6 rounds.
This?
And then you can move on top of it and go to the middle.
And put blocks on.
Yes.
It's unclear how many blocks you put on there.
How many,
Right, I move up
however
to
many
here.
spaces it takes
Yeah.
up on the
I
grid.
move up to here.
How many actions per turn do you get? 2?
Up to 2.
What are these blocks doing? I'm not quite clear.
I don't think they're doing anything. Is that correct? They're just like additional
Yeah.
signifiers. Okay. Yeah, it feels
Yeah, I see that point.
strange that they don't have a mechanical purpose.
Okay.
It would be one thing if like lightning could strike just this corn, and just that block would get removed,
And you can go on the block.
and then like that's blocked, but like
At first I thought it was like signifying that we planted it. But then I realized.
But no, we all have the same
we all have
color,
the same-
yeah.
I thought it was
and we can all share. So.
Because we started with these little cubes, like inspired by Go game,
Mhm.
and like in the first playtesting, we found out like it's too confusing when there are too many cubes. So we use the paper instead, but we also enjoy putting the cubes.
Yeah, I think one or the other makes sense though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it just depends to choose the both.
right.
It's your turn.
Okay. What would help you the most?
Well, you could.
Can I plant
You-
from like far away?
I think so.
Okay. So do you want one of these? Or do you want
Maybe another corn to shoot me all the way out here would be good. Right? And then I'm avoiding the lightning zone.
and then I'll just use one.
Okay.
So,
You should block.
yeah, I'm going to do that. But first, I'm going to.
Oh, dreadful.
And then I'll move right to.
I'm a little confused at how it works in this instance when it's not like directly here from the other player.
Well, I think it means that if he were to use this corn now, it would then force him to either go this way or either.
I think it just blocks it. I don't think it actually pushes you, am I correct? The path?
It would,
I just wouldn't be able to go this way, right?
you would have to turn in the only available space.
Right.
You'd have to go to the corner for this, yeah.
Or like go into safe zone. For no reason. That actually is faster. Okay, it's my turn?
So the lightning clock goes up by 1. And lightning
Oh, yeah.
2. Any twos? No.
Okay. should I go?
I'm not sure.
I could like move here and build something going that way, but then maybe I'll just get blocked. Or I could move you in the middle, but then they're free to move. Or I could block them. Should I block them and then you move?
Sure.
All right.
Right? I don't know.
Objective
Those
is
are-
taken.
Yeah, it definitely is, right? Because well, those can be destroyed.
I don't know those are-
Those are blocks. That's the block. That's the blossom. But you can destroy it with popcorn. Whereas this one you can't destroy. But it seems like there's limited. Okay. Good chunk.
Yes. That seems very strong against that.
Does seem
Yeah.
really strong. But strong against this
Yeah.
too. I guess it's just more strong against that.
We'll make the gun thing.
I'm not quite sure
Oh, I forgot about the gun.
where you can go.
What do you do with
I
anything?
definitely want to make a gun at some point.
Yeah. You have to, if the game has a gun.
Every gamer ever.
Alright,
So now it's.
that's my turn.
My turn.
Sorry.
I wanna put this corn here so I can like kind of.
Oh, I see.
Okay. You can also move on your turn.
You can only move
You
two.
only move two.
Okay.
Although wait, does this?
Does that count as?
You could also, I guess, just move two and then do though.
Well, we have to technically move through to get to the first one.
Like you wouldn't be able to use it this
Well,
time.
but the question is, does this shoot you to the end of the branch like a corn would?
What if I
No,
like?
oh, it does?
Yeah.
Okay, so if it pushes me to the end of the branch, then 1, 2.
Woof. Brutal.
Alright. Should I use the gun?
I moved on my turn. What a fool. I feel like you should use a gun. It feels like you should use the plant killing gun.
The plant killing. Wait, so.
There's a lightning rod.
Okay, yeah, the lightning conductor and then corn flower gunpowder. Okay.
Cornflower gunpowder goes up the time.
It feels strange that we're on a team, but also we have individual units that don't behave differently in any way, and we don't have different abilities. So like it seems like it is most likely to be a scenario where like one teammate moves and one teammate blocks, defends, or something.
One's a completely supporting role.
Yeah, and it just feels like it removes a little bit of choice from each player.
So where would the next free space be? For this? Like, would it be here or would it be here?
I feel like it would be here.
Okay.
You have to make that sound with these guys.
No.
Does that mean this corn is gone?
No.
No, that gun pushes you
It just pushes you.
to the next available space in that direction, which seems like it would be the other end of the corn.
Oh no.
No.
No, it's not the closest free space.
Oh, the closest free space, period. But it says in the direction of the gun, right?
Yeah, it goes in the direction.
That is the direction of the gun, yeah.
Yeah, so-
Oh, does this count as a free space?
No, because
Okay,
there's
so
nothing
this-
already planted there.
So then this is correct. Okay.
Oh no.
Well,
Is that your
I didn't
turn?
see that, I didn't see that one.
Did you move?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, cool.
I think it's fine because it looks like you're just.
Go on here.
You're just gonna support me for a while.
Alright. We've exchanged who's going to be the seeker.
It kind of stinks that the lightning goes at the beginning of my turn. Because I can't do what I want to do right now, which is shoot you into lightning zone 3 and then have the lightning strike you.
Oh, what do you do? So it's so sad.
But you could do that to me.
I do
So that feels like it's weird because I'm at an advantage because I went first and I can just more easily get to this first if we all play
Optimally.
most efficiently, yeah.
But then continuously after you have.
But also you can I have the disadvantage of like the lightning always strikes immediately after I act. So that's interesting. Or immediately before I act.
Oh, yeah. And your turn there?
Yeah.
Why was the lightning counter rotated? Like if it struck during your turn, then it would pass on to the next person, and it would like start from their round. Just start going out.
Yeah, that's true. If it kept getting passed around or like it randomly happened in a deck that we're drawing from where like sometimes nothing happens and sometimes the lightning strikes.
Sometimes it strikes twice.
Yeah, yeah, double strike. Yeah. Yeah, that would be great. I'm thinking about the willow thing. Right here. Oh, what is it doing in the lightning zone 4?
You can flip it.
Oh, that's
It's still going.
yeah, it still does it.
Go for it. Why not?
Don't let your dreams be dreams.
I mean,
No, don't say that.
Do it.
yeah, I would. Do I get hurt if I am on a branch that gets struck, or only if I'm on the square that gets stuck?
I have square.
Only on the square. Could do it anyway, knowing that the branch is
So
going to get.
that confused me because what the lightning destroys this, right?
Yes.
So, but because they're on diagonal things, like,
Why be here?
where are you?
Yeah, that's true. It's a little strange.
I guess that's why where the blocks would at least signify where you'd be.
Yeah. Okay, we should go no more than 15 minutes longer, I think. Should I just try it? It's definitely going to get struck.
But like it won't kill you.
It's unclear.
And
We'll have to argue about it at this point.
I think it just sounds like it'll just remove the tree.
and then you'll be like.
And I'll be like I'll be in like the
You'll be in a good place.
You'll be sorted by the
Yeah,
guard
like
have
it.
remains of your
One,
inside.
Two.
Alright, my turn.
So you can like shoot me at that too,
Or I can block him.
or you can wait, you can't plant anything.
Oh, right. I can block him. So I guess I have
is
to
that true? Can you not plant?
Yeah.
I can try
I know you
shooting
can't
you.
plant here.
Yeah, shoot you there.
I don't think that's a legal
I
play.
don't think you can do it that
You gotta line those corners up.
Can
Ooh, reverse willow. Also unclear. Well, you'd only be able to go this far, but then the next turn you could go more.
That's about as far as I can shoot you.
That seems like it should work.
And
Although I don't know.
you can't plant over it. I
Is
think.
that lined up right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just a little off.
It's a lightning zone, so.
So, you didn't say. If you put a corn here, right? Can I move one, shoot forward, build a corn, shoot the other way?
I suppose you could.
Oh, that seems right.
Let's just do that then.
Well, no, because you don't have enough.
Because it'll move up to 2 spaces. And when you build,
But you can move. Can you move up to 2 spaces, or can you move twice per turn?
Move up to 2 spaces. Up to 3 spaces.
So you can't move, plant, move.
If it already has an ability to transport you, then you would transport.
You'd have to plant the second corn, but you're gonna write.
Yeah.
So do you want to do this then? Or do you want to do the willow?
Oh no, that's not true either.
Or should we do a gun and take out this thing?
we can do it done.
Let's do a gun. Alright, so how is the gun? This is the gun, right?
What are you gonna shoot?
You.
I'm not on a square.
Oh, the other
Go
one.
the other way.
It definitely has to line up with the grid, right?
Well, actually, that might not be even worth it.
Yeah,
Because it's still really close.
yeah, fair enough. So let's just shoot you to the moon.
Just accept that your loss.
That's what Napoleon said. Actually, he did. This or this?
This movement rule is unclear.
Which is the better? Which is the optimal? This? So then you get to do this, and then plant another corn.
Well, I think
What do these do? Are these lightning rods?
Yep,
Yes.
that destroys the plant.
But they're temporary.
Yeah, and I don't remember if it destroys the whole plant or just.
Well, I'm guessing they're gonna run.
Yeah.
Try running into this
Fine.
one.
Oh, well, no, because that even be hard because it's obstructed at this point.
Right. So should we? Okay.
Oh, so if you can just destroy a plant, we should just lightning rod it then.
Okay.
When does it conduct lightning whenever there's a lightning strike? But does lightning conductor happen immediately, or does lightning conductor happen when lightning's like after like the whole?
It'll conduct the lightning immediately.
Okay.
Alright.
Yeah, I would just straight up destroy it.
Destroy it? Alright. Anywhere. How do you even? It's like vertical, straight. No?
Let's say here. That's directly in front of it, right?
Fair enough.
So then they're both.
I think it's facing the wrong way.
No, it's right.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh,
So this is destroyed. You go in and this remains here and start at your next turn.
so I go. I'm like here-ish, but I guess I'm here. Do we all agree?
Yeah.
Let's do that
This
again.
was here, and I was here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Read it. Yeah, that's when the cubes are really annoying.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, is it possible for me to use this to protect you so that they can't push you away from the direction that you're going?
Oh, like could you put it behind me so they
Yeah.
can't put one right in front of me?
Yeah.
I feel like that could backfire because they could like. Well, actually, you know what? Anything they play is going to get destroyed right before my turn. How much I just find that out.
I always keep track.
Okay,
Sorry.
so what should I do then?
Lightning.
It's about to be lightning 4.
Yeah,
Oh, this is gonna go away.
no.
This could,
Oh no, this is on 1.
or like this could, or you could block. You could block,
I guess I'll block.
or push it onto the other end of that coin. Same way you did him.
Which one is that again? Oh, it's the gun.
Maybe like if you could gunshot him into the lightning.
That's what I wanted to do, but lightning 3 already
I
struck.
can't, this is the,
Oh yeah, you're right.
the opposite.
Nice try.
Okay, and then I'll do this one.
What can I remove that? Just the lightning. Point.
You cannot remove that. I think the rule under it says remains on board.
That is a flower.
That's a path.
Does it require the target destroy, like lightning conductor can destroy everything?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, except Blossom, except Kuro.
Okay, so lightning conductor can destroy it. And lightning can destroy it. So lightning can destroy it. Yeah, the other thing that would be nice, yeah, some way to randomize the lightning I think would go a long way. Like even if it were a lightning die, I think it also might be nice if these were, they're actually more in the way than I thought they would be. Like when we were initially reading the lightning rules, I was kind of like, well, we just won't plant on there, that'll be fine. And they're spaced, actually, I think, pretty smartly. But it might be nicer even if they were, like, a little more all over the place, and there were, like, you could give them, like, a color and a number, and you could roll the color die and the number die, and then, like, whichever one it lands on gets struck. Would be another way to randomize it. I think the deck is probably stronger, but...
You could.
You trap me?
Yeah.
We did.
Unbelievably rude. If I lightning that, I'm going to get trapped again. Would you say this is true?
How are you gonna get trapped again?
If I lightning gun that, they'll just plan another one.
But then I can
Lightning.
lightning that one.
Then they'll plan another one.
Are we gonna take a
Let's see
second?
where it goes.
We need to stop feeding these people strategy. Oh, did 4 strike already? Did we advance that?
I just moved it.
Thank you. You're a better game manager than I am.
Was there there's another 4 or no?
I mean, I could corn hop,
Okay.
and then I could go here, and then get blocked again.
Then we can shoot it.
Could move you.
Okay.
Could get you in the game. Spice things up, put a little additional pressure over here.
Okay.
See, this is why having 2 players is an advantage.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I'll say is like, it could maybe just as easily be 1 player with 2 player pieces,
Yeah.
because there's no. I guess that's true of any team game, but
Having unique things to do between each character, each player might.
yeah, it would help a lot.
Like something cat-like can do it.
I think
We fall into roles very fast.
like if the frog could jump over stuff.
But the pig could just eat trees.
Or corn, maybe.
That too.
Maybe something
Pigs
pigs
eat
eat.
everything.
Okay, so I planted that, and now I will 1, 2. I can't walk on Willow, right?
But you end your turn, right?
My turn is over.
Then this goes away.
No, okay.
Oh yeah, temporary lightning gun.
That's why I didn't say, I was saying anything, but.
Oh, what a beautiful world we live in.
Electrifying.
Oh, I'm gonna get the. I'm gonna get the buckwheat next turn.
Okay, when he then gets the buckwheat, we like launch all our lightning strikes on him.
Oh, how do you?
Once I get the buckwheat,
Oh,
just
yeah,
shoot
can
me.
you- what
Just
happens-
use a gun to shoot me.
What
from
happens
the
if you, the light, so that would end the game?
Yeah,
Right?
lightning strike.
If you
Yeah.
strike the buckwheat.
Yeah.
Everybody loses. Yeah.
That's actually kind of dangerous.
If we
Like
can.
once it leaves this area, like.
Yeah, they could shoot me into a lightning zone and make everybody lose.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that. Let's do
Or
it.
they could like send me on a wild ride away from the safe zone until they can steal it, which could be cool. But
Or we can do both.
Oh no, your team loses. We would win if that happens.
Oh, our team is.
extremely rude.
It's like the Indiana Jones movie. You're waiting for Indiana Jones to get the arc and then you shoot Indiana Jones.
Is it your turn?
I think.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay, so what are we doing?
Let's finish this round and see if I get the buckwheat.
We're getting the buckwheat.
Are you shooting me towards the buckwheat?
Yeah.
Wow, this is. Alright.
Some strategy
How?
going on. Yeah. Okay.
Are you gonna do anything else?
I can only move.
You could ride your corn.
I can ride my corn and then get shot back down again.
Does this shoot every turn?
It should have been removed.
Oh, these are temporary.
Oh.
Okay, so this isn't here.
Aha. Oh, in that case, I should have shot myself up. It's fine. A little bit of chaos, right?
Having identifiers on the tokens that explain that they're temporary would also go a long way. Like, I don't know what that would be. Could just be a different texture on the background or something.
I can shoot
Oh man.
No? Okay.
Does the gun go forever? Like if I let's say I put a gun here, would it hit me?
Yeah, it's the nearest possible.
But like even if I put the gun here
Yeah.
and it shot all the way and hit me, could we put one here and shoot through this corn?
It would be the first corn.
It would hit the corn.
Yeah,
And
it would
stop.
the corn.
It wouldn't.
But
It wouldn't
the
hit
next
the
to
thing.
your space would be over here.
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying if we put the gun here and we shot this way, would it go through the corn? And put him. Oh, it already struck there. Never mind. It's pointless. I just want to get people struck by lightning.
Okay.
If I get struck by lightning, that'd be a lot of bacon.
Oh, jeez.
Alright, so should I just put him back again?
I actually don't think you
Strike.
can now
Yeah, I
because.
can do this. And then,
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, pow.
Okay. Great.
And
then I
then
can
ride
undo-
your you'd be in the branches. Yeah.
And then this is temporary, so take it off.
Yep.
if I wanted to shoot the buckwheat, is that an interaction that is explained?
In what way? Like you would only shoot the buckwheat?
Like, could
as
he
if,
bump the buckwheat this way
Yeah, but
with a gun?
With a gun.
With a gun?
I'm gonna assume you can't.
Yeah.
I was gonna assume that.
Well,
Because it doesn't say that.
And then
what's the gun say?
It specifies a player.
You said individually. It says two flowers and two corners. She's a
Yeah,
player.
the player,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
a player.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Buckwheat is not yet a player.
as soon as he gets it, we can shoot him into 5.
But then you would be destroying the buckwheat.
Exactly.
Oh,
I also have a question. That can I use this here because the empty spaces are on the.
well, those should be for diagonals.
And then, yeah, it wouldn't match up. Dang.
You could lightning strike this away.
Isn't that immune?
I won't build another one on my turn.
It just wouldn't, it wouldn't do much right now.
Just keep hold on to your
You
lightning
know
strike
what?
until Diego gets a lightning.
There are only, oh, okay, 1, 2. So if we can,
Yeah, true.
so the
So you
okay,
could build a coin.
there's a problem with defense in that I feel like it is strong enough that I can just, with all these structures, we can just kind of block someone from winning.
I would make it like,
Like
yeah, no
block the
movement.
clear zones. Because what I was planning on.
Oh yeah, you could just start. Once I get the buckwheat, you could just start planning.
Just make it
While you
impossible
are.
for you to go here.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good point to stop.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So let's discuss.
It's a lot of components.
Mm-hmm.
And like, when we started playing, a lot of it like made sense. But I feel like the explanation for them could be consolidated a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
There seemed to be like a lot of ways of saying that this is a blocker. Stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think just saying. It's interesting because there are so many special case rules, which I think doesn't always feel great. Like it's weird that we can plant this flower one and destroy it. I think like this or like this,
Yeah.
but not. But that we have no way to destroy these flowers. I think it'd be nice to sort of make the rules more consistent, where like it's just like flowers can be destroyed if they have corn on both sides. Like the corn robs the nutrients and the flowers can't do it.
Right.
I think that might end up making for more interesting board interactions anyway. Yeah, and then you'd be encouraged to do stuff like that, like build creative structures where they're defending each other.
I felt like we were just using the simplest structures anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And like the more complex structures with the more complex rules, the most complex structure we ended up using was the gun.
We
Yeah.
didn't use this one at all.
We didn't use sucker.
No, we used the
Oh, but you know what? We could have used this one
Yeah.
because we could have used it to hop those,
Yeah.
which I hadn't thought of. Oh, and we totally can walk on. Yeah, some things that are confusing to me are like can I do this to move or no?
That is confusing. Would this immediately shoot you up?
Yeah, I guess so. But even here, it'd be interesting, like, if that were a little better explained in the rules, like you just can't walk on a plant, or entering a plant at any time shoots you towards its endpoint, and they have clear starts and ends, or you choose which endpoint you go to, right? I like that this lets me hop, but it feels strange that, like, I can walk on them, but then never again, unless I go from the entry point.
I think it's interesting that we have a lot of different types of plant types because we did use a lot of them. I mean, we didn't use like 3 or 2 of some. We used most of them. I think that makes it hard to play test the interactions between them all.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why you have to have so many like very special case things or combos, which is fine, but it becomes confusing in the rules themselves when you had to look at those special cases.
Yeah, it feels like your process was to list all the different things in the story and come up with rules for each one, rather than start coming up with interesting rules and layering them in using elements from the story, or like thinking of one element of the story and thinking, okay, that moves us here, let's try with that. Okay, now what's the next one? And keeping it to the most necessary, I guess.
I thought it was interesting that it's like teams. And I was like I wasn't sure. I was wondering like what went into that decision, and like why not like a free for all 4 players or a 2-player game.
Yeah, it was at some point, right?
Yeah, we were deciding whether to have like individual. In that case, each player had 4 pins to use to their advantage, so that they had 4 opportunities to get to the buckwheat.
Okay.
And then we ultimately changed it to teams, or like just teams of 2. So it could be like any even number, but then we realized that just those 4 sides, we just have 4 players.
Yeah, it feels like teams could be cool if we had special rules, or there was more ways in which we could help each other in ways that we couldn't just do it ourselves, right? Because it just feels like, sometimes it just feels like both players are playing to support one of the players, and that can feel not quite as good as the player that's in the support position. I think this movement, I think the whole idea for like the way we navigate the board is really neat. And like having these little portals that zip us around is also really fun. And the idea that like if we connect 2, then maybe we zip all the way is kind of cool too. I mean, it feels like you'd have to like move, zip. But so those kinds of things are a little bit unclear in the rules.
I think this would benefit. Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
I think this would benefit from making it a little crazier, like allowing for like extreme things like that, so that, because right now at least how we were playing very kind of setup heavy and defensive. Like you do something, I don't like them well, but if we can make strong offensive things to counter those, I think things would have moved a lot faster, but we would also have been switching between that support and active role a lot more frequently if we could make those crazy structures.
I also, sorry, I don't know, but just mentioned that came up earlier. I don't like that or I'm like it's a little weird to me that like when you're playing as the buckwheat and that the other team could like use the lightning conductor on you, and then essentially pretty much it would like you would immediately lose the game.
Oh, so I was reading it. It feels like you can't do that because it says when lightning strikes like that, but not from the. I think it's implied that it has to be lightning that strikes it, but not using the lightning conductor. I'm not sure.
They aren't connected. They what? The lightning conductor and the lightning clocks are separate.
So
Yeah,
like,
but
can
like-
we?
Can you use a lightning rod to actually like throw over the other player?
So like let's say
It seems like the lightning conductor just destroys plants,
Okay,
which the
yeah,
buckwheat
but the
technically
buckwheat
is
is
not.
technically is not a plant.
It seems like in the setting, well, you answer that.
You wouldn't want to destroy it, is what I'm getting at.
Even if I had it and
So
they were about to
Yeah,
lose.
they were about to lose.
So instead of like us losing, we just use the lightning rod.
I feel like that's like a forfeit kind of strategy, and like you could definitely do that. I think what we were getting at was that you would rather try to steal the buckwheat away rather than hit it and just end the game.
Yeah, I think the argument against that is that, first of all, it's very hard to move when people are playing defensively, right? So I would be going towards there, and my teammate would be blocking other people trying to get to me, right? And so it'd be really hard for them to get to me, and additionally, it's better for everyone to lose than for me to lose and you to win, right?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, inevitably you see a lot of people being like, well, if I can't win, the world's gonna burn, and it's, you know, the game lets it happen, right? So that can also feel bad, you just sort of get robbed.
Oh, in the previous version that I played of this game, you had like a pride counter. I really like the change to a lightning counter because it just makes more sense for what we're actually doing thematically. Because in the story, it's like the buckwheat's prideful and gets struck by lightning, and oh, we were sad. But just leaning towards the lightning makes a lot more sense in this type of game.
Yeah, the lightning counter is a really good idea. I agree that, or I still feel that what I said earlier is true. It'd be nice if it were happening at different times or in less predictable places, or even if it was still predictable, yeah, like it switched whose turn it was or something like that would go a long way. Because it just feels bad that like I can always be pushed right into a lightning and there's nothing I can do about it. But if I push anyone else into one, there's always something they can do about it because their teammate at least will go before the lightning strikes.
Right.
I think this game would benefit hugely. Well, I don't know. I kind of wish there were some sort of cost to playing things or limit to playing things, right? You could imagine it would be a whole other level of complexity that would be hard to design. But you could imagine a deck of cards that corresponds to what I'm allowed to play. Because then you can't just always block the person, right? It's like, oh, nice, I got a block card, perfect, I'll block them now. But you might otherwise like be forced to like, you can't block them, so you're forced to like put a corn shooter in front of them instead, so then they actually just get like forced in a totally different direction in a more interesting way. In fact, I kind of wish we had done that more. It seems like there are times that we block people and we could have actually like shot them, you know, across the map in a way that they shouldn't have gone. But it'd be nice to like not always have every tool at our disposal.
Yeah.
I think in a scenario that would make teams a little bit more interesting would be each team has their own shared pool of resources. So you give us a limited number of each of these things, and that could be a way to do something similar to that. So you give them like, oh, as a team, we only have 2 blockers. So
Yeah, even in that case, at least you're like, oh, well, if you do that, then I can't do this. So you have something more to like discuss and argue about. I think would be nice. There's so many cool pieces here. I love the idea of like pushing people around and using the movement and like this was super fun.
yeah.
It was maybe a problem that we could like repeatedly do it and just annoy the stuff endlessly. But again, like with a limit, then that would be really interesting because you do that, you wait for like the right moment to do it, and then the payoff would be really sweet. It's kind of like what I was talking about before with the other game. Like you want to be able to like scheme a little bit and then like have it realized at the right time. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, the thing I love about the lightning placement is that you don't see it once you have placed the thing on it. That can be problematic when you're like not paying attention, but it goes back to what Diego was just saying, where if someone is not keeping track of that, but we are, and like you, oh crap, I forgot. It's like how I was planning for that. That felt good because there was a moment where it was like they had the lightning stuff here, and Diego did not remember that it went off the next turn, but I did. So I just let him like do a move that made no sense. That felt
Rude.
Yeah.
But also correct. Yeah, I agree, except maybe there's too many cases where everyone could forget that the lightning is there.
Yeah.
And so it'd be nice even just to have like cracked earth coming out from the places where it struck before or something, even if it's really subtle. So we're not like, we have to be paying attention and we don't know what number it is. But at least we know like, okay, lightning struck, we should check if it struck here. Yeah, cool. I think this is really interesting, good work. And I think like, you got one of the harder stories to make into a game. Communicating like weird pride discussed between plants is a difficult thing to gamify. So
You traded one hard story for the other hard story.
that's true.
So you got both of the hard stories?
Yes.
You're so lucky.
And this one's like a little more literal too. So
Yeah.
the other one is hard, but you can kind of like, you have maybe a little more wiggle room to make it more interesting. This one is like, well, the story is that there's these plants and one of them is really, really prideful.
Like another story is hard. Sometimes I feel it's kind of abstract, I guess, to make a book game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
What's
that
the
would
other one?
probably would have been really accurate.
The other story was called The Dumb Book, and it was about a funeral where the dead man had a book under his head, and each page had a plant pressed in it, and each plant represented a memory from his life. And it was basically like Hans Christian Andersen like reflecting on life and its temporary, fleeting nature, I guess.
That's a great digital game.
Yeah, we were thinking it would be a really good digital game.
I love board games.
I mean, even this I feel like would work pretty well in the digital game.
Yeah.
You could solve some of the like problems of having like so many pieces to keep track of. It would also solve the problems of the lightning strike.
It has some elements of that recent tactical game that I'm forgetting the name of by the FTL people.
Oh, Into the Breach?
Into the Breach, yeah. Where like you have to like remember that the fire is going to rise up the next turn so you can push the one tank into the fire and then kill the tank at the right time, that kind of stuff. Cool. Good work. Operation Buckwheat. All right. Thank you, critics.
Thank
Thank you.
so much.
Thanks for
We
coming
release
today.
you
Yeah.
to your real lives.
This is fun.
All right. It is 5:45, so we have about 15 minutes left. Why don't we